separate and intersect as far as you as mayor of Capitola and me as supervisor for the county in District 1. So District 1 includes pretty much everything west of Soquel Creek. So pretty much, the Shadow Brook there on the cliff and everything west. So actually, sorry, the Jewel Box is not included, but like 49th, 48th, 47th Avenue, and the area around the mall, Claire's Street by the library. Those are all parts of Capitola that are also in the first district. Of course, if you live in those areas, a vet is the one who can help you with city services. So if you're getting a building permit in the city of Capitola, you want to go to your city of Capitola representative and mayor. If you have any issue with city police or parking in the city of Capitola, you would go to the mayor. Right. And then programs that extend, county programs that extend to the city would really mostly be in health and human services, whether that's child protective services or services to address homelessness. Those are all functions that the county manages. And then if you live a little bit further beyond the city of Capitola, like in the wild west of Live Oak or Soquel, those areas are technically outside of the city of Capitola. And so the county then takes on all the functions that the city has within its own jurisdiction. So we have the county sheriff, we have the county planning department.
Yeah, it gets a little confusing. I often get emails from constituents in your unincorporated or vice versa in Supervisor Friend's district, or like you said, like you called me out, if you have issues internally, you can always call me or email me. So I really appreciate you clarifying that. But as always, email me if you're not sure. So, you were elected in December, right? You were sworn in December, am I right?
I was actually sworn in January 4th. So I'm coming up on 100 days here on Wednesday.
Wow, congratulations. That's a huge, huge feat there, 100 days. Tell me what your experience has been like so far.
Thank you. It's, there's a lot of moving parts. So of course, just standing up the office and making sure we've got all our kind of programs and processes in place to track. I mean, we had broke it down into about 100 different things that we wanted to accomplish during this term. Basically campaign promises translated into specific policy objectives. So we've got, we're using an app called Monday to track all those different things, and then, any constituent communications related to it. Just meeting all of the county departments has took a good chunk of that time as well, and learning how best to work with staff to accomplish these various goals.
Oh, Supervisor,
I don't know. That was
weird. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
I've got a couple of specific policy proposals passed. For example, directing the planning department to create an ordinance for tiny homes. And they're currently moving that through some public meetings to get feedback on it, as well as directing the planning department to create a pre-approved permitting program, which actually I believe you guys got going in February as well. So we wanted to make sure you didn't leave us too far behind in the dust. So it's been interesting working on those and seeing, how best to write those agenda items so that they're, that staff can take them and run with them as productively as possible.
And tell me a little bit about that, because, in my short experience on council and as mayor, I've learned over time that it takes a little while to get things done. What's been your experience so far? How's that been feeling working with a team of other supervisors?
Yeah, it definitely takes time to get things done. I would say on the whole that as a team of supervisors, as you say, the five of us do work pretty well together. I've been, pleased to see the way some of our productive policy discussions at board meetings have turned out. For example, working on a proposed ordinance to address homelessness that would try to identify locations throughout the county and county-owned property that could be used for homeless services. I think, yeah, we had a great discussion back at the beginning of March on that issue. I think, you know, what I'm seeing is that the more direct that I can be in terms of what my proposal is and what gets on the agenda and what staff is directed to do, the better. You know, it just takes kind of the gray area out of it. And the, you know, just for example, with the proposal to legalize tiny homes, we've seen a lot of other communities do that. There's some model ordinance language out there. And my initial inclination was to just take that ordinance language and propose that we adopt it. And then we kind of rolled it back to directing staff to write the ordinance. And so I think that ultimately, if I was going to do it again, I would just go with putting forward the ordinance language itself, because again, that takes a lot of the process out and kind of shortens it and say, you know, here's what I want to see done. Can we agree on that as supervisors? And if so, then let's make it happen.
Right. Yeah. Are there any projects or things that you're working on specific to Capitola, or how do these ADU, this kind of project affect Capitola? It's kind of a two-part question, I know, but more, you know, we're so tiny though of a community, but anything going on that you're thinking of for our little town?
Well, small but mighty. I mean, don't write off Capitola. You know, being smack in the middle of the county, I think that you occupy a really important geographical space, a really important cultural space. And if anything, I see the Capitola's role growing in the future of our county. So as far as how, you know, my work and your work, I think, interact the best, or where there's most opportunities for collaboration, it's probably really on transportation related issues, and particularly in terms of active transportation. For example, making sure we get protected bike lanes on Capitola Road, a road that goes from the city into the county. But of course, if you're just using that road, you don't necessarily know that. You don't know when you're in the city and when you're in the county. So I think it's up to us to collaborate on projects like that to make a seamless and improved user experience for the everyday citizen.
So you mentioned you're nearing your 100 days,
and
you've talked about your the tiny homes idea, and I heard you talk a little bit about that on your campaign trail. Are there any other goals, or is there a new set of ideas brewing for you with, you know, in the near future here?
Well, you know, I kind of I believe strongly in the rule of threes. Right? It's easy to.
I get excited. No, I get too excited. My list just will go. You can ask our staff at the city level. They're just like, you know, there's just so much happening. But I appreciate you pulling back before with.
Yeah. So I try to keep it in three buckets, which is, you know, housing, homelessness, and transportation. And of course, you know, homelessness also relates to health. But that's kind of my mantra. I'm like, okay, let's do something on housing. All right, did that, you know, did the tiny homes thing. Now, you know, what can we do on homelessness? You know, we got an ordinance moving there, and you know, use of different county property. Okay, what can we do on transportation? The Live Oak parking program, of course, has been. I just came from a meeting on that, and we're going to hear that item tomorrow.
You want to tell us a little bit about that for those who aren't sure what you're talking about?
Sure. So the city of Capitola has paid parking. The city of Santa Cruz has paid parking, and the county has, well, I guess, sort of two paid parking programs. There's the Live Oak parking program, which operates around like 7th Avenue and the Harbor and Twin Lakes Beach, and extends around the Live Oak beaches into the Pleasure Point area. So it's our primary parking program, and it's operated at a deficit for many years. And we've also had feedback from the Coastal Commission first that it's unfair because residents get free permits and visitors have to pay for a permit. Now they're telling us they don't like it at all. So we're trying to reconcile some of the feedback we've gotten from the Coastal Commission, bring the program into the black, and then potentially expand it as well to areas like Opal Cliffs, which has seen a lot more visitors since the opening of privates, since privates became public. And as there's like less in between areas where people don't have to pay for parking, we want to try to ultimately equalize it so that the impacted areas all have a parking program if they want one.
Interesting. And are you, I'm just curious, are you leaning towards one side, like it should all be, because I agree that there's all these different programs going on. Are you looking that they all become a paid program, unilaterally across the different cities, or what's kind of your thoughts behind that?
Well, yes, I think ideally we'd want to see the same app used by the cities and the county, so that again, for someone visiting our coastal area, it's all the same. That they don't have to have multiple apps on their phone. That said, the county is currently considering using an app called Passport instead of Park Mobile, which the city uses. So that might need to be reconciled in the future. I can't say honestly. We've getting some new information that and to reconcile up to the meeting tomorrow. So right now it's either we could, as far as I can see, the two options are really to keep the program, including having everyone pay the same for permit fees from residents to visitors, or scrap the program and make it even in that no one has to pay for parking in the coastal area.
Yeah. So much for your plan of 3, right? It just keeps coming.
Parking's in transportation.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question about another potential project. As some of you may know, Kaiser is looking to build in your district, Supervisor Koenig. What should the city know about this project?
Well, I think first of all that it is a large project. We're talking about 160,000 square feet of medical office space, 730 parking spaces. This is off of Capitola Avenue, just past the sheriff's station on your way from kind of Live Oak into the city of Capitola. There's no doubt about it, it's a slightly awkward and difficult place to get to. And so I think we're really gonna have to look at collaborating on transportation patterns or new transportation routes so that people can get to the facility easily from the city or from the mall if more residents are living there, or any part of Capitola.
Yeah, it's a very big project. One of the things that I've mentioned and other talks is my hopes in that that Kaiser works with, that our developers of our mall work with other companies such as Kaiser on workforce housing to kind of mitigate these issues we're seeing with homelessness and everything that's tied along with that. You mentioned ADUs in addressing homelessness in our county. What are some of your other ideas on addressing homelessness?
Whether it's, ADUs is sort of just one way to increase the amount of housing stock in our community in general. I think legalizing tiny homes on wheels is another way. We've seen a lot of pallet shelter communities. These are those little white houses, and they actually collapse, which is sort of cool. And so they can easily be moved around to different locations. But I believe the county should acquire some of those. Housing Matters has about 15 right now, but it'd be helpful to expand our capacity of emergency housing or that we have here in the county with more of those, several hundred ideally. And then I think that having visited some of the shelters recently, I went up to the Armory last week to see the shelter there, and think my biggest impression was that it'd be helpful if there were more opportunities for training or work on site, like or nearby some of the shelters, and ultimately transitioning those shelters to more of a at least midterm community, village. For example, everyone up there at the Armory has to takes a shuttle down into the city of Santa Cruz for the day, and having more space for them to plant and manage a garden, or some courses they could take to I don't know, learn how to do woodworking or something like that. That's what we've seen in other communities work well. Whether it's Community First Village in Austin, Texas, they've got a lot of those like job opportunities or training programs on site, and I think those really help people connect with a sense of purpose and start to develop some goals again, and improve their sense of self-worth. And so those are all really important aspects to helping people, find the will to ultimately be in housing and change their lives for the better.
Yeah, it's pretty neat when you finally become an elected, where you can start making things happen, and being in a community where there's a need, and being part of group, me being able to sit with other council members who are on the same board, who believe in the same message. And I know that that's the same for you, with your fellow supervisors, just trying to get things done, because the need is real, and it's like they said, it's a pandemic, it's an emergency, we need to do something, right? I mentioned the mall, and I actually don't know, I haven't heard you talk about the Capitola Mall and your thoughts. I don't know if you've seen our, well, it's a little dated right now, the conceptual review that the developers submitted over, well, I guess 2 years, maybe it's 2 years now, 2 years ago. What are your thoughts on what they've proposed so far? And I guess for our viewers and our listeners, what the Merlone Geyer, who's the developers of the Capitola Mall, presented to council was a mixed use development project, which would include approximately 600 apartments and retail and businesses, is what they proposed, like I said, close to 2 years ago. What are your thoughts, Supervisor?
Yeah, I think ultimately the project is definitely headed in the right direction. It'd be great to see some revitalization of the Capitola Mall. I used to go there all the time as a kid, and now not so much anymore. So I think their proposal to open air it, and kind of make it a little bit more accessible with some of the streets going through it, would and create a little bit more community space in the middle with I guess aren't they calling it a plaza project?
Oh, or I actually think, yeah, I think they said plaza or town hall or something similar like that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something along those lines in the name, which is great. And I think also the idea of adding housing near retail is really important in general. The 41st Avenue and is the largest employment area in the county, other than downtown Santa Cruz. So there's a lot of jobs in this area, and it'd be great to have some housing to go with it, so people aren't stuck on the highway as much commuting. Of course, we're going to have to take some actions to ensure that housing is for people who live and work here and have those jobs, and aren't just being added as second homes for people or second homes or third homes for people who already who don't really need them, so to speak. So I think that I'm interested in looking at other policies to help protect that housing stock when we create it. But generally speaking, we do need that kind of infill development. And just to kind of explain my thinking a little further, I mean, the metro right now, our public transit system with our buses, we're looking at a $10 million structural deficit in the next 5 years per year. And so in order to close that gap, we need to see more ridership. And that really means creating more walkable communities where people don't need a car most of the time. And then when they do need to get somewhere, they could take the bus.
Yeah, yeah. I think I shared with you earlier that I'm really trying to facilitate those conversations. And one of those well, he Supervisor Koenig switched the question on me earlier when we were discussing questions, and it was like, what do you want to see um, as a collaboration between the county and the city? And this is kind of one of those projects where I'd love to see some thought go into as we create our developers agreements with the developers in regards to the housing component, how the county could support us. So I really look forward to those future conversations. I think it'd be great, and because it benefits everyone.
Yeah, and I'll just add
It's kind of,
the
yeah, please.
SoCal corridor, just on the other side of Highway 1, technically it's in the unincorporated county. Again, most people wouldn't know that they actually left the city of Capitola, but that is a major corridor that we're looking at for potential more housing as well. And the
Yeah,
SoCal Research Park area over there too.
And I appreciate you mentioning the transportation, because the biggest impact any sort of development has on such a small community like ours, and SoCal corridor is the traffic, and what, how do you build without having that kind of direct impact on the community? So it all goes hand in hand. And I know that the city of Capitola is being very mindful of that, and I'm sure, like you've heard from our supervisor today, that he is too. So that's great news. Okay, so switching gears a little bit, the city of Capitola just passed or just agreed to move forward with on implicit bias training and making it mandatory for not just council members, but our commissioners, our police, who already are required to do it every 5 years, but we're looking at making it more often, and our staff. What are some things you are doing to bring a kind of attention to racism in the community? I believe you guys can passed it as a pandemic, or you wrote a proclamation on that. I might be misspeaking here, but what are you doing specifically to bring more attention about this countywide problem?
Yeah, you're right that our county passed a resolution declaring racism as a public health crisis. And we've really operationalized that in terms of our COVID response and distribution of the vaccines. So I think many people have heard that COVID disproportionately impacted our county. We saw twice as many people get sick in South County, and actually to some extent in Mid County as well, and largely within the Latinx community. So we decided to distribute vaccines in a way that really met that need. And that has included a lot more focus on South County and to some extent Mid County as well. There's of course the Fairgrounds mass vaccination clinic in South County. We've stood up with some of the resources we got from the federal government, the Optum vaccination site at the old City Hall, kind of across from the library down there in Watsonville. And a lot of the new vaccine capacity that we get, Salud para la Gente is going to have about 5,000 to 6,000 additional doses, again, specifically to address the highest need population in South County. Then in Mid County, we've had the East Cliff Family Health Center has also been a major distributor of vaccines. And of course, they work with a lot of people who are low income or on Medi-Cal. And so that's been a great way to distribute the vaccine more equitably as well.
Do you have any, speaking about the COVID pandemic, do you have any updates for our community, or kind of what you're hearing? I know there's been a lot of numbers and updates, but any new updates on where our county stands today?
So it's hard to say because our last update from last Tuesday is already, it seems.
I know. I looked today and it said we had 132 active COVID cases in the county, which is amazing, such great news. And I don't know what the ratio is, but that if that remains the case, from what I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we get to move into a lower or better tier. And I don't know what color we're at these days.
We're in orange. We're in orange tier now, and I
Yeah.
believe it's possible we could go to yellow tier this coming Wednesday.
Mhm.
Um, well, again, I'll know more tomorrow. I mean, I think generally speaking, our county has done amazingly well distributing vaccines. We've been like sixth in the whole state for a percentage of our population vaccinated. And then once you take out some of the super small counties, and you look at counties with just a population of 250,000 or more, we've actually been second best in the whole state.
Yeah. Yeah, we
So,
most certainly have done a great job. Um, do you have a message for as I know at least what I've been saying about coming out of this, or hoping to move out of the pandemic soon. What have you been sharing with your constituents about what's to come, and best practices?
well, of course, we want to continue to be as safe as possible until everyone has had an opportunity to, everyone who wants one has an opportunity to get a vaccine. And we're expecting to reach some level of saturation by June 15th. But until that time, we really want to limit the extent to which we could see another spike in cases, and largely because if there's more people infected, we could see new variants, right? I mean, you can kind of see the pandemic at this phase as vaccines versus variants. And, a lot of those scary new variants are coming from places where they don't have as many vaccines and are, haven't been able to keep the virus in check as much. So I think, for our community, we should just keep doing what we're doing. We have a really high rate of, awareness, great compliance and use of masks. That's all fantastic, and also a fairly high opt-in rate for vaccines, and that's all great. And I think that's why we're doing so well, and should be able to come out of this relatively soon. Hopefully, have a normal summer.
Yeah. Just for everyone who's watching on Facebook, I'm Yvette Brooks. I'm the mayor for the city of Capitola, and this is our mayor's town hall series. Tonight we have Supervisor Koenig, District 2.
District 1.
District 1. I always get them mixed up. Oh my gosh. District 1. I feel like I'm on switch sides because I'm right in the middle of the districts. District 1 County Supervisor tonight. We will be able to answer any of your questions, but if you're asking questions on Facebook, I am not monitoring them. I shared earlier that today I'm wearing my mayor's hat, moderator, question person, all of the above, and I'm pushing a lot of buttons as I'm multitasking here. So if you are on the Zoom meeting, we will get to answer questions, but please put them in the chat as you're, if you'd like me to ask our supervisor this evening. I have a few more questions for him before I get to your questions. But again, if you're on Facebook asking questions, I'm unable to see them. Okay, so we were just talking about the vaccine. I feel like I'm on like CNN when I'm asking these questions. It's so it's so interesting to wear this hat tonight without a moderator. But so you were talking about COVID and moving out of the pandemic and vaccines. I was just thinking about volunteer opportunities, or just getting involved, and maybe it's not in relation to the vaccine clinics or anything like that, but what are some ways that you would like to see our community members get involved or volunteer, or do you know of any opportunities at this time?
To volunteer to help with the pandemic and distribute
COVID, I guess my question is only because often I get emails like, I didn't know about this sort of stuff, or how do I get on that commission, or how do I get onto that group. So I'm just thinking about, the county is humongous. I think you have something like 50, 60 different commissions. I mean, it just blows my mind. So
Yeah.
what's going on there?
Yeah, so we've got about 30 commissions and a total of, I think, around 40 commissioners, because some commissions have more than one commissioner. And just appointed 20 new people, or will appoint 20 new commissioners tomorrow. And I think we've still got a couple positions open. So if you're interested in serving on a county commission, you can just Google Santa Cruz County commissions and vacancies, and a list will pop up. And you can submit an application, which I'll get. And if you apply for one of the open seats, I'd be happy to talk to you. As far as volunteering with the vaccine effort, I think there's definitely an opportunity to do that as well. As we're going from, I know at least with the fairgrounds site, running a mass vaccination clinic 2 days a week to 5 days a week. So that's going to definitely take some extra manpower and woman power. And you can volunteer for that. I believe there's a link on the county site. And if you do that, you can actually be eligible for a vaccine sooner as well. So there's sort of a altruistic and selfish, benefit to that. And then, finally, generally speaking, I do think that volunteerism is fantastic and really helps bring our community together. I had an opportunity to volunteer with County Park Friends the other day, working on a labyrinth at Felt Street Park. It was just so great to get out with friends and neighbors and do some hard labor outside. So there's great opportunities to volunteer with our parks program in the county, or with the animal shelter. And I'll be working on a couple of specific volunteer efforts as well. Next up is we're going to try to clean up the Hook parking lot a little bit.
Oh, nice. How can we find this information? Are you doing any of your own kind of constituent meetings or anything like that?
Yeah, every Monday before the county supervisor meeting, I'm hosting a town hall type meeting so that we can talk about anything that's on the agenda or any other issues folks want to bring up. And then there's, I'm having a number of neighborhood meetings, whether it's for SoCal Village or the Summit area, throughout the month. And you can find those all on my county page. You can go to manukoenig.com, and forwarding that to my page that on the county, you can see all of the meetings coming up, subscribe to my newsletter, and I'm sharing events and volunteer opportunities that way as well.
Yeah, your newsletter is super informative. I get it. And it's just really nice to see what you're working on at the county level, and just kind of things that could ultimately affect our constituents here in Capitola. So you talked about your 3 goals or your 3 priorities kind of within this time frame. I know this is kind of a big thinking, overarching question, but what do you see kind of down the road? How do you see that develop? How, what are your intentions as within the next 4 years? I think you've been pretty successful in bringing and addressing your 3 goals there. What other ideas do you have?
I think I'd really just like to, whether it's at the end of 4 years or more, be able to say that I've helped make Santa Cruz County a more sustainable community. And I mean that in the environmental sense. Hopefully we're all using active transportation more, or riding public transit more, or living in walkable communities. I also mean that in, I suppose, economic and cultural sense as well. I know a lot of people today are feeling a lot of anxiety because housing prices keep going up and up, and it feels sort of unsustainable to stay here as a family. Maybe your parents are able to own a home and raise kids, but it's like, how the heck am I ever going to be able to do that as the next generation? And so I think making that happen is going to require changing our land use patterns, looking at some of that infill housing opportunities. And I think that we can solve both the sustainability, both on like a climate level and a cultural level at the same time. But it is going to come down to like the things that it is the issues that we keep getting stuck on, whether it's parking or a new development next door, right? I mean, those things are what lead to social injustice, right? I mean, so many of the folks in the Latinx community that I talk to say, well, we just don't have housing here, and it doesn't feel like anyone's paying attention to that. And like, I have to say, the biggest gap between rich and poor is home ownership. And so creating more, more condos that people can buy to move from renting to owning is huge. It's going to allow people to build wealth and close that economic gap somewhat. And that's why I'm also looking at things like tiny homes, because at least you can own the tiny home and build some equity in that. So there's a lot going on out there, but I think that you actually can bring it back to those three categories of housing, homelessness, and transportation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's just a lot of opportunity. As you know, I mentioned the Kaiser project, and if that's job opportunity with an opportunity with workforce housing, or if we can create these opportunities to be more inclusive, or to ensure that they're more inclusive as we build them, is really important. So I appreciate your messaging there. And you mentioned condos. I was lucky enough to buy a little 900 square foot condo 5 years ago. We just celebrated 5 years of ownership, and I think I say this every time, but people are like, "Yay for your starter home," and I'm like, "Oh no, this is my forever home." This is the reality of that. So, it is really important, and I think you have a awesome opportunity to make a lot of, revisiting the American dream, if you will, and creating opportunity for everyone to be more equitable. So thank you so much. I'm going to take a quick look at the chat. We only have a few more minutes before we have to let our supervisor from the first district. I know I got this right this time. I do see one question. This is more specific to the city of Capitola regarding where we are with our Rispin Park. And I will go ahead and be able to answer that one offline. Council will be, I believe there was an email about that specifically to us. So I'll take that one offline. No questions. We have a quiet group. I think with you getting your information out there and being so available, Supervisor, has been really helpful to the community members, and just the world today with Facebook and Twitter and tweeting and newsletters. Just getting it out there is so important. What are some things we should just know about you? I just shared a little bit about me and my goals, or not my goals, but kind of how I got here. What's some things going on just more personally with you, if you don't mind sharing?
Oh,
I know
sure.
you're so busy.
Well, I'm a condo owner too.
Whoop, whoop, condo owner.
It at least takes, as I said, it's amazing what a psychological difference it makes, feeling like, even if your space is not large or is 800 square feet, you have, some stability in your housing. And ultimately that motivates me to create that same opportunity for more people.
Yeah, well, great.
Yeah.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
Well, yeah, it's really interesting for me to see how some of the housing stock that was created 20, 30, even 40 years ago. I mean, if we hadn't created that housing stock, there would literally be nothing under $1 million in our community today. And it's only because we built those condominium units. And actually, I don't think people realize how much of Capitola has like a large share of housing stock like that, particularly around the mall and around Clare Street. It's quite a bit, and it's great. It really fills a central need in our community. Other things about me, I love biking. the bike to work every day. It keeps me sane. And if I'm able to get out of the board meeting early, might even go surfing.
Nice, nice. Well, I won't take up too much more of your time. Is there anything else you'd like to add or that I didn't ask you tonight?
I was just going to ask you, Mayor Brooks, what would you like to collaborate on?
Oh, changing the world and making things great. What's I touched on it. I think that there's just there's a lot of funding coming from the state that's going directly to the county. Capitola, generally, when community block grants become available, we have to apply for them in order to submit to support community programs and a lot of other things like economic development or housing or any of that sort of stuff, just based on the type of city we are. And whereas the county just gets the money directly. And so what I'd like to see is when those decisions are made, that the county supervisors turn to council specifically. I know that there's a lot of subcommittees that are created, but to kind of come to the electeds or come to the mayor at that time, because my tenure is only short-lived as a mayor, but just to see what's going on and how we can see that money utilized, especially as we move from the pandemic to the recreation, to moving just out of it, if you will. So far, the county has been amazing in supporting our out of school program. We were one of the first cities to create an out of school program in response to the pandemic and essential workers having to go to work and there was no care for their kids. The county gave us some funding for scholarships to support our families. I'd love to see that continue. We're not only seeing schools come back, but we are seeing that even if it's full time, it's not full days, and a lot of our programs have had a shutter. Our after school programs have had a shutter, and if the city can continue to offer that, that would be really great. As well as summer programming, right? So schools ended, if you will, summer now. What are families going to do? And we need to offer affordable opportunities for our families, not just in Capitola, but throughout the county. So that's just one example of collaboration that I'd love to see. I'd love to get to hear more of your thoughts on the mall project and what you think about the Kaiser project and how we can maybe work some leverage there in creating more workforce housing stock for our community members. And that's about it. I mean, I could go on and on, but I just think it's just having this open dialogue and being available here on Facebook Live and on Zoom to our constituents, just to say that we're here and all ideas are welcome. And so that's what I'd like to see.
Great. Yeah, some alternative education and after school programs, continuing those. And then, yeah, we're dealing with a lot of growth in Mid-County. And there's going to be a lot of opportunities to collaborate.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. And then you can just give us all the funding. All your funding can come to us and we'll do great things.
Well, yeah, I'm sure we can collaborate on projects that will, like I said, span our jurisdictions.
Yeah, agreed.
That's 41st Avenue or Capitola Road, or yeah, there's some pretty major arteries that go right through.
Yeah, there are. Okay, I do not see any other questions. So thank you so much. I hope you get a break this evening and can go stretch those legs from being on 500 Zooms today. And I appreciate your time so very much, Supervisor.
Thank you so much, Mayor Brooks, for hosting this event and for inviting me to join you tonight. And it's really wonderful to have an opportunity to talk with you more.
Okay, everyone, have a lovely evening. I will see you next month, I hope. My next Mayor's Town Hall is on May 11th at 6 p.m. It's going to be with the COO of Kaiser, Sam Bahaj, who's going to be able to bring forward the plans that were submitted for the project, and we'll be able to ask some questions. So maybe, Supervisor, you'll want to attend that. And then our council meetings information is always available on our city's website. And you'll be able to see past meetings and minutes if you were wondering what's been going on. But I encourage all of you to attend our city council meetings just so you can keep up to date on what's going on in Capitola. And similarly to our county supervisors meeting, this is the best way to stay in the know. But if you're unable to, you can always view those videos online after the meeting, or you can go ahead and email me at brooksforcitycouncil@gmail.com if you have any questions or concerns. So that's all I have for tonight. Thanks again, everyone, for attending, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.